Picture an aircraft, packed with state-of-the-art radar, designed to spot any anomaly in the ocean. And this very same aircraft, under the command of a highly experienced captain, Andy Dahananto, slams into the side of Mount Bulusaraung at full cruising speed. How is something like that even possible in 2026? The shocking truth is that the crew deliberately disabled the very system that could have saved them. Why would anyone on board willingly blind themselves in the face of deadly danger? The answer is terrifying in its simplicity. The vast Java Sea is about to test the mettle of a seasoned crew. The date is January 17th, 2026. Yogyakarta's airport is a hive of activity. The team is preparing for a long-haul flight to Makassar, a route that takes them directly over restless equatorial waters. Our main character today is a turboprop aircraft, an ATR-42-500, serial number 611. The base version of this plane rolled off the assembly line back in October of 2000. A quarter-century of demanding service is behind it. Engineers know practically every rivet in its fuselage. The ocean below forgives no technical compromises. Open water demands flawless performance from every mechanism and absolute concentration from the people in charge. To carry out such complex missions, this aviation veteran underwent a deep modernization in April of 2025. The aircraft was completely refitted. It is now a high-tech platform for aerial maritime surveillance. On board, they've installed advanced radars, powerful optical sensors, and the latest water surface scanning systems. The machine can detect any anomaly below. On the tarmac, a technician carefully inspects the propeller blades and landing gear. The engines emit a steady, confident hum. All telemetry readings are in the green. Specialists sign off on the documents, confirming the aircraft is in perfect technical condition. The plane is fully prepared for its mission, awaiting the command for takeoff. At this moment, 10 different fates converge at the metal air stairs. The aircraft's commander, Andy Dahananto, confidently climbs into the cockpit. He is 58 years old. In the aviation world, he's known as a calm professional who can read the weather just by looking at the clouds. His long service record is rightfully considered impeccable. To his right, the co-pilot, 26-year-old Muhammad Farhan Gunawan, takes his seat. A fresh perspective, quick reflexes, and a perfect understanding of the plane's digital systems. It's a classic blend of proven experience and young technical prowess. In the cabin, 2 experienced flight attendants move about, meticulously checking that every latch and lock is secure. This is a special flight. 3 specialists sit down at the controls of the advanced equipment. They understand that the success of the entire operation depends on their attentiveness today. They are the ones who will be continuously scanning the sea through ultra-sensitive optical sensors. 3 ordinary passengers, with no connection to aviation, take the remaining seats. The heavy doors swing shut, sealing everyone on board inside. 10 lives within a complex machine, ready to challenge the might of the sea. An observer from the control tower closely watches the final stages of preparation. Technicians fill the wing tanks with a colossal volume of pure jet fuel, a precise engineering calculation for a long patrol over open water. There's enough fuel for 6 hours of continuous autonomous flight over the sea. 6 hours of monotonous engine work with zero margin for error. The heavy, fully fueled machine gracefully taxis to its starting position on the runway. The controller gives the go-ahead. The turbines roar to life, gently pressing everyone into their seats. The aircraft smoothly lifts off Yogyakarta's hot concrete and climbs confidently into the thick layered clouds, strictly following its pre-assigned course. 8:09 a.m., the radar controller at EGPWS Airport records the exact moment of liftoff. The 17th of January has begun. The turboprop rapidly gains altitude, slicing through the heavy, humid tropical air. Captain Dahananto smoothly and confidently brings the heavy machine to its designated cruising altitude. The nose of the plane obediently settles on an easterly course. Below the left and right wings stretches a vast, unnervingly uniform blue carpet, the open waters of the Java Sea. The water today seems unnaturally calm, like a giant frozen mirror hiding its deep secrets. Experts from the National Transportation Safety Committee would later dryly note a crucial detail in their lengthy reports. It is at this very moment that the most grueling part of the flight begins. The crew immediately starts their primary mission, monitoring the maritime situation. The operators in the passenger cabin synchronously activate the complex, sensitive scanners. The modernized platform comes alive, transforming into an all-seeing digital eye. Thermal imagers methodically probe every wave, every microscopic anomaly on the water's surface. The monitors in front of the technical specialists light up with continuous streams of telemetry. However, even the most advanced electronics cannot completely replace the sharp human eye. To get the most detailed view of the designated sectors, the crew changes their flight profile. The aircraft begins a careful, precisely calculated descent directly over the open sea. The numbers on the altimeter obediently tick downwards. This is a standard maneuver for visual confirmation, one that requires masterful manual piloting. The huge metal machine is now gliding very low over the salty abyss. The cold breath of the ocean can be physically felt right beneath the thin fuselage floor. Onlookers from lonely cargo ships passing by watch these maneuvers, mesmerized. The pilots continuously adjust their course, fighting to compensate for the dense sea breeze. The cockpit is filled with a perfect professional silence. The patrol is proceeding flawlessly. No one knows the exact altitude they are flying at. Official documents would later find no precise recorded parameters for this patrol. The ocean reliably hides the aircraft from ground control radars. Maritime monitoring is always a dangerous dance on a razor's edge. The specifics of such a complex task require operating exclusively at extremely low altitudes, where the heavy crests of the waves practically lick the turboprop's metal fuselage. At this moment, a pilot reaches for the instrument panel and activates a critical function. A dim yellow indicator, Terrain Inhibit, immediately lights up on the console. Aviation experts often call this mode a forced blindness for the smart electronics. To prevent the sensitive equipment from going haywire due to the constant, alarming proximity to the water, the crew manually disables the EGPWS system. This electronic guardian normally warns pilots very loudly about critical proximity to any surface. Now, the twin-engine plane glides over the abyss in absolute digital silence. The protective barrier is put into a deep, artificial sleep. The system completely blocks all audible alerts, eliminating the distracting false alarms over the vast expanse of the sea. The massive machine is now relying solely on the vision, vast experience, and professional instincts of its captain. Minutes slowly stretch into long, grueling hours. The difficult part of the mission over the equatorial waters is finally and successfully completed. The aircraft smoothly leaves its designated patrol area. The machine confidently banks onto its original easterly route. The flight continues peacefully towards its planned destination. Makassar awaits. The crew visibly exhales the accumulated operational tension. The co-pilot requests fresh weather updates from the ground. The team casually opens their flight manuals and rhythmically flips through their checklists. A completely standard, routine preparation for the upcoming landing begins in the cockpit. Around 1 in the afternoon, the radio crackles to life with a short report. They are entering the approach zone. Dahananto's crew confidently establishes contact with the Makassar approach controller. The long, monotonous hours over the smooth ocean are behind them. But it's far too early for the aviators to relax. Their destination airport greets the approaching aircraft with the harsh embrace of extremely unstable tropical weather. The treacherous equator dictates its own brutal rules of the game. The on-duty meteorologist in Makassar's tall control tower peers intently into the dense gray curtain outside the panoramic window. The air is scorching, exactly 30 degrees Celsius, turning the vast space around the concrete runway into a giant, suffocating steam room. Right now, a solid wall of warm, torrential rain is pouring down over the bustling city. Visibility on the runway is still at an acceptable 9,000 meters, but the endless sky is rapidly darkening. Heavy cumulonimbus clouds hang low over the ground, forming a grim, lead-gray ceiling at an altitude of between 1,700 and 1,800 feet. This massive churning mass reliably hides powerful updrafts and very dangerous turbulence within. Ground-based weather services are continuously recording gusty crosswinds. The spinning cups of the anemometers clearly show speeds of 8 to 10 knots. A relentless airflow is hitting from a direction of 300 degrees, causing the tall, sprawling trees at the edge of the airfield to sway nervously under the onslaught of the raging elements. For an experienced commander, these weather conditions are routine, but they demand maximum concentration. The controller, in a calm, steady voice, reads out the current weather report. In the cramped cockpit, the dry numbers instantly translate into clear flight instructions. The co-pilot quickly double-checks the landing vectors on the glowing screens. The twin-engine machine bravely punches through the wet squalls, beginning its final descent. The crew is fully prepared for landing. Members of the investigation commission would later study the topographical map and shake their heads in disbelief. To the north of the busy airport rises a solid, impenetrable stone wall. A massive mountain range rises silently over the bustling tropical coastline. While the city of Makassar is just experiencing a heavy, prolonged downpour, in the vicinity of Mount Bulusaraung, all-out weather chaos is unfolding. Local farmers at the rocky foothills are rushing to take shelter in their sturdy homes. At higher altitudes, a violent cyclone is raging right now. A relentless wall of tropical rain is aggressively mixing with low-lying clouds, turning the surrounding air into a thick, gray soup. Visibility in this wild mountain sector is plummeting to near zero. We're talking a terrifyingly low figure, less than 5 meters. If you held your hand out in front of you, you wouldn't even be able to see your own fingers. Strong, utterly unpredictable gusts of wind are hurling sheets of icy water against the sharp cliffs. Journalists would later emphasize a stark fact in their articles. The entire jagged landscape was completely hidden by a solid, utterly impenetrable layer of clouds. It was as if Mount Bulusaraung had intentionally wrapped itself in a thick, invisible mantle of heavy vapor. Flying here is like fumbling your way through a pitch-black room lined with steel traps. Finding any reliable visual reference in these conditions is simply impossible. Flying in such a treacherous area is permitted only by relying on precise navigation instruments. The aircraft must place its full trust in smart gyroscopes and sensitive locators, because outside the cramped cockpit, a completely blind force of nature is raging. The stone peaks wait patiently, hidden in the fog, merging with the endless rain. The dangerous mountain range remains silent in the gloom as the crew continues with their routine work ahead of their imminent landing. The controller's voice cuts through the static-filled airwaves at precisely 13:14. An invisible thread of communication now firmly connects the radar tower to the plane, lost somewhere in the thick clouds. The ground is taking control. An experienced approach specialist in Makassar gives the crew the long-awaited, life-saving vector. Captain Daihananto receives official clearance for an instrument approach. The instrument landing system, known as the ILS, immediately kicks in. It's an ultra-precise, invisible electronic beam that is supposed to guide the machine safely through the blind, gray haze, straight to the wet concrete of runway 21. Right now, in their offices, analysts are meticulously studying every second of this short radio transmission. Hidden within it is the stark mathematics of survival. The approved safe arrival procedure dictates its own uncompromising terms. The aircraft must navigate a critical waypoint, codenamed OPENG, with surgical precision. The onboard computer is plotting a three-dimensional glide path for the final descent. The controller has assigned the crew a clear altitude corridor. Over this abstract geometric point in the raging sky, the heavy aircraft must be at an altitude of exactly 5,300 feet, not a foot lower. The unpredictable mountains lying just nearby never forgive navigational errors. The slightest deviation from the assigned route is simply unacceptable right now, not with a treacherous tropical storm raging all around. In the dark cockpit, switches click in unison. The young first officer, Farhan Gunawan, presses the ridge push-to-talk button on his microphone with a practiced routine gesture. In a perfectly calm tone, he confirms the successful receipt of all instructions from the ground. The team is working together smoothly, professionally. The crucial numbers are instantly fed into the active memory of the onboard autopilot. The mechanical altimeter in front of the experienced captain's eyes obediently counts down the remaining feet. The machine continues its relentless push through the wall of rain. The green blip on the radar screen treacherously creeps past its target. The approach controller in Makassar stares intently at the glowing monitor, expecting standard procedure. The heavy turboprop is rapidly approaching the critical waypoint, OPENG. The rigid geometry of the approach pattern dictates its own absolute, uncompromising rules for survival. It is right here, at this invisible crossroads in the sky, that the heavy aircraft must begin a smooth but strictly mandatory turn to change its course. This turn is vital for the crew to accurately line up with the final landing vector. The second hand on the control tower clock mercilessly ticks away the time. The display now reads exactly 13:16. The aircraft passes abeam the waypoint at high speed. The Future Accident Investigation Commission would later try to meticulously understand the logic of this strange moment. For some inexplicable reason, Captain Dehananto's crew completely ignores the prescribed procedure. No cautionary commands are heard in the cramped cockpit. The pilots don't initiate the expected bank. The aircraft, like an arrow shot from a bow, continues its stubborn, straight-line movement on its previous course. From the ground, this developing failure looks frighteningly clear. The air traffic controller feels a chill as he watches the flight's digital marker confidently leave the established boundaries of the safe corridor. It is deviating catastrophically from the safe trajectory. The plane is heading straight into a remote mountain sector with zero visibility. The controller immediately presses the plastic push-to-talk button, cutting through the radio noise. He urgently calls the cockpit and, in the clearest possible tone, reports the alarming fact. They have just flown past the critical OPENG coordinate without the slightest hint of initiating a turn. The twin-engine plane continues to fly in a straight line, carrying 10 people away from the safety of the runway. 30 seconds of radio silence is an eternity. At exactly 13:16 and 30 seconds, the silence is finally broken. The pilot's voice crackling through the speakers sounds tense. Experts listening to this recording can clearly detect signs of rising stress in the cockpit. Captain Dehananto's crew requests an urgent vector from the tower. The pilots are desperately trying to salvage the situation and rebuild the shattered geometry of their approach. They ask for a life-saving course to another waypoint, Kebab. It's a desperate attempt to get the heavy metal bird back on a safe track amidst the raging tropical storm. It's as if the captain is trying to find a life raft in the blind gray haze. But on the ground, there is a completely different understanding of reality. The observer in front of the glowing radar screen sees a picture that takes his breath away. 10 long seconds pass. At 13:16 and 40 seconds, the controller presses the button to respond to this emergency request. His words land in the cockpit like a cold, heavy stone. The control specialist informs the pilots of the terrifying truth. The life-saving Khabib coordinate is already far behind them. The twin-engine aircraft has flown past all possible safe points for a turn. The machine, at high speed, continues to race stubbornly straight towards the mountain range hidden in the clouds. Every passing second relentlessly shortens the distance to the invisible wall of rock. Precious time is running out. The crew's spatial awareness has been completely shattered by the thick layers of tropical weather. In their reports, investigators would highlight this fateful moment as the point of no return. There is almost no time left to correct this navigational error. The pilots are forced to urgently find a way out of this dangerous trap, relying solely on their instruments. The deadly trap snaps shut at an altitude of 5,000 feet. The altimeter in the cockpit stubbornly shows readings between 5,100 and 5,300 feet. Investigators would later call these numbers a death sentence. In this rugged northern sector, the minimum safe altitude is exactly 7,000 feet. The turboprop is flying unforgivably low, practically scraping under an invisible stone ceiling. At 13:16 and 40 seconds, the control specialist makes a desperate attempt to fix the situation. He issues an urgent command for an immediate course change. The voice from the ground is stern. The crew is instructed to immediately enter a steep bank and turn to a heading of 240 degrees. Just a moment later, a hasty correction to the initial plan follows. A new urgent instruction cuts through the airwaves. Turn to a heading of 250. This sharp navigational maneuver is initially conceived as a reliable lifeline. The ground is genuinely trying to get the lost aircraft back onto the correct approach pattern as quickly as possible. Aviation experts who later studied this tense radio exchange were utterly horrified. The controller's mistaken order becomes the central paradox of this entire tense operation. The specialist, sincerely trying to guide the turboprop out of its spatial disorientation, instead directs it into the very heart of the threat. The assigned vector of 250 degrees mercilessly turns the nose of the aircraft directly towards the sheer mountain terrain. The twin-engine plane, trusting the ground completely, obediently accepts the command and dutifully heads towards a monolithic cliff hidden in the thick fog. In these crucial seconds, the crew is completely deprived of any ability to visually assess the situation. The pilots continue to fly the plane by instruments, unaware of the approaching obstacle, flying blind into a wall of rock. That's how air crash investigators would later describe these tense, fateful seconds. The multi-ton aircraft obediently banks onto the fatal vector of 250 degrees. All around is an impenetrable, thick gray haze. The dense tropical clouds are plastered to the cockpit windows, completely robbing the experienced crew of the slightest visual contact with the outside world. The plane continues its journey at a terrifyingly low altitude, like a blind submarine in murky water. At this moment, the aircraft is 1,700, maybe even 1,900 feet below the established minimum safe altitude for this rugged mountain sector. Analysts would later ask one crucial question. Why did the advanced intelligent electronics remain silent? The answer lies in the specifics of a recent maritime mission. The vital EGPWS, the system designed to scream out warnings of impending danger, said nothing. The very same override mode, activated over the sea for comfortable low-altitude patrols, was now working against the pilots. No piercing voice commands about approaching terrain ever came through the speakers. Specialists would meticulously pore over the flight data recorder graphs, and what they found was chilling. The records show a complete absence of any last-minute evasive maneuvers. No one yanked back on the control column. Inside the cockpit, a routine, professional atmosphere prevailed, rigidly dictated by a steep authority gradient. The difference was stark. The captain was 58, the first officer just 26 years old. The captain's immense experience unwittingly suppressed any initiative from his young partner. There is no record of any corrective action from the first officer. He placed his complete trust in his senior colleague and continued to monitor the instruments. The aircraft maintained a steady course right through the storm. The crew remained calm, the machine obediently following its programmed route. 1317 becomes the final moment of this difficult flight. The Makassar approach controller casually presses the communication button, expecting a standard position confirmation from the Dahananto crew. In response, only the mechanical hiss of an empty channel crackles through the speakers. Neither the veteran captain nor his young first officer had time to utter a single word. The commission's experts would later state, with profound regret, a critical fact. Not even the briefest distress signal was ever transmitted. The flight crew, until the very last split second, was certain their path was correct and completely safe. At that very instant, securely hidden by a curtain of endless tropical rain, the twin-engine aircraft, at high speed, slams into the sheer northern face of the Bulusaraung Massif. The collision, a release of monstrous kinetic energy, occurs at an altitude of about 5,100 feet above sea level. The massive wall of rock, concealed by nature behind impenetrable storm clouds, brings the flight to a complete and final stop. The aircraft was just 11 nautical miles northeast of the life-saving runway at its destination airport. An instantaneous total shutdown of all onboard systems permanently cuts off any digital telemetry to the ground. The work of this complex aviation machine is severed in a heartbeat. In the spacious air traffic control tower, a heavy ringing silence instantly descends. The ground controller stares in disbelief at his large work monitor. The green radar blip of the flight, which he had been watching with intense focus for so long, simply dissolves into the dark digital void. It vanishes from the radar screens forever. The controller repeats his calls again and again, but the airwaves remain hauntingly silent. The event becomes an unchangeable part of history. Flight 611, respond immediately. The controller's desperate cry echoes through the control room. Attempts to re-establish contact with the vanished crew are predictably met with no response at all. The airwaves coldly offer only a dead static hiss. Long, agonizing hours pass before the cumbersome response mechanism spools up to full power. It's not until 1733 that the National Search Agency officially initiates a large-scale rescue operation. Advanced ground teams are hastily dispatched to the harsh, estimated grid square of the last radar contact. Rescuers quickly pack heavy gear, preparing for a grueling ordeal. The lead team commander's expression darkens as he assesses the route ahead. The search is critically hampered by a merciless and utterly wild mountain terrain. Steep, rocky slopes are entirely covered in thick, impassable jungle, and the relentless tropical downpour reduces visibility to absolute zero. The teams are forced to literally feel their way through the wet undergrowth. Every wrong step threatens a fatal fall into deep, rocky crevasses. The rapidly approaching equatorial night introduces its own uncompromising challenges. A deep, almost tangible darkness blankets the jungle, making any further progress simply impossible. The operation leader makes a difficult but necessary call. Active ground search efforts are urgently suspended due to the unbearable weather conditions. The teams are forced to set up temporary camps right on the waterlogged ground, listening to the roar of the wind. The night stretches on, frighteningly slow, draining the crews with uncertainty. Finally, a faint gray morning light timidly breaks through the thick blanket of clouds. The cold dawn of January 18th arrives. As soon as the weather offers a small window of opportunity, the powerful thrum of rotor blades shatters the morning silence. Search aircraft immediately join the tense rescue operation. Helicopters begin to methodically scan the dangerous slopes from the air, trying to spot the glint of wreckage amidst the dense green vegetation. At 7:46 in the morning, the rescuers' radio channel suddenly crackles to life. Through rare breaks in the thick clouds, a search helicopter crew spots the unnatural gray shine of metal on a steep mountainside. Shattered fragments of the fuselage are scattered chaotically among the lush tropical greenery. The helicopter's navigator quickly dictates a dry set of coordinates into his microphone. 04 degrees, 55 minutes south latitude. 119 degrees, 44 minutes east longitude. This mathematical precision finally puts an end to the long, agonizing search. Exactly 3 minutes later, at 7:49, the commander of the exhausted ground team, breathing heavily, confirms over the radio that they have reached the main crash site. The scene before the search party makes them freeze in shock. The massive twin-engine aircraft is completely obliterated by the monstrous kinetic impact against the unyielding stone cliffs. The metal is crumpled, torn into small pieces, and deformed like a fragile eggshell, leaving no survivable space for anyone inside. Later, one crucial detail will draw special attention. The first response team carefully recovers the standard-issue flare gun from beneath the mangled elements of the cockpit. The weapon of last resort is caked in wet mud, but remains undamaged. A close inspection reveals a chilling truth. The flare gun is fully loaded. Not a single attempt was made by the crew or passengers to use the life-saving signaling device. No flares ever lit up the night sky. The team meticulously combs every square meter of the steep, soaked slope. The stark reality is absolutely unforgiving. No signs of survivors are found at the crash site. The tragedy was instantaneous, shifting the operation into a phase of evidence collection and a long analysis of the facts. Gathering evidence on the sheer mountainside turns into an exhausting forensic puzzle. It's not until January 21st that the weary search team, fighting through the mud, extracts both heavily damaged black boxes from the wreckage. These dented orange capsules hold the digital truth. Back in the capital city lab, investigators carefully open the flight data recorder, blowing away the mountain dust. The decoded graphs confirm the experts' terrifying suspicion. The powerful turboprop engines were running at full cruise power, right up to the millisecond of impact. The machine didn't break apart in the storm. It was obediently carrying its crew toward a wall of stone until its very last breath. On January 23rd, tired specialists in cool offices complete the incredibly complex procedure of identifying all 10 people. Qualified geneticists, experienced fingerprint experts, and forensic dentists work around the clock, meticulously comparing DNA samples, fingerprints, and old dental records. The findings of the final medical examination are stated in starkly clinical terms, yet they bring a tiny sliver of comfort to the families. The tragic end came instantly from the horrific, unsurvivable G-forces. No one on board had the physical time to even comprehend the sudden, impending catastrophe. The attention of the meticulous detectives is suddenly drawn to an extremely odd detail: the young first officer's electronic pedometer. The recorded activity numbers make the commission hold its breath for a second. Could someone have been desperately moving on the slope? A deep analysis of the microchips shatters this fragile illusion. The device's data is officially declared a simple technical glitch caused by the colossal kinetic impact and is completely unrelated to the post-crash period. The picture that emerged was one of a chilling, systemic failure. The Safety Commission immediately formulates a stark, foundational document. Investigators issue firm, preliminary recommendations to the airline and to the management of the ground control services. New radar control rules need to be implemented, starting today.